Hello community, and welcome to the top 10 best maps of the Hitman trilogy. At the number 10 spot we have Mumbai. I know this may be controversial, but it really shouldn't be. This map is by far one of IO's best. The way they were able to make it feel alive, the NPC conversations, the music, the lighting, that's all well and good, but also the ridiculous number of assassinations that are available for you to do. You can kill Vanya, call Rangan, and lure him to meet with the Maelstrom to drop a huge pipe on top of their heads. Or kill Rangan first, call Vanya, and then you can use a train to kill them both, and even exit with it. On top of that, you can just have a meeting between Vanya and Rangan and drop a bolt on top of their heads, and all of that is doable shoot only, and that's just the peak of the iceberg of things you can do and lures you can create. It's a phenomenal map with countless possibilities. Even if you don't use disguises, you can have a completely different playthrough every single time. It's also very fun to explore. You have very interesting things you can find and learn from maneuvering it. However, it's not without flaws. Sadly, having 3 targets really is too much. It can make playthrough a lot longer than you would want it to be, and also can be very difficult to come up with consistent routes. I remember back when I did my sniper guide for Mumbai, it took me days to come up with a decent route. Also, it's very much built like a maze. You either excel or you straight up drown. There's no middle ground. It's one of the more difficult maps of the series. It's basically Miami with the difficulty ramped all the way up. So for that, I'm putting it at number 10 on this list. At the number 9 spot we have Dubai. I like to refer to Dubai as the forgotten map, because anytime I see people talk about Hitman 3 maps, it seems people always forget about it and tend to leave it behind. Which is a shame because this map, although not the biggest in size, has a lot of heart. It's one of the more extravagant maps of the series, much like the rest of Hitman 3 maps, besides Romania of course, is also very well built, allowing you multiple different routes to get to where you need to go and many opportunities to take down your targets, shoot only or otherwise. It is a really good map, but it suffers from the fact it was released in Hitman 3, which was packed from top to bottom with great maps. If this was Hitman 1 or 2, it would be a lot more memorable. As a map itself, there is nothing too wild or crazy about it. It is just a good Hitman map for all the reasons I mentioned previously. It gives you a lot of freedom of approach, it's very fun to explore, it has useful items scattered around convenient places. However, there are some problems with it, the biggest one being Carl Ingram. His loop tends to be a bit awkward to interact with, very difficult to get a hold of. There are ways to lure him and beat him, but overall it is one of the more convoluted targets out there. Still, it is good enough to be on this list, but I don't think it's great enough to be at the top spots. Number 8, Ambrose Island. It is the final map of the series in a way, and I have to say, though my expectations were extremely low, especially after the whole 7 Deadly Sins debacle, I gotta admit, I was very pleasantly surprised with this map. It is a proper Hitman map, a good map may I say, and although exploration is a bit different, the map flows together very well. Freedom of approach is as good as it gets, both targets can be lured into multiple different positions, shoot only or otherwise. They're very well executed, however the third objective, not being optional, really does hold the map back a bit. Destroying the servers isn't too difficult, but gets annoying having to do it every single time, and your alternative of having to go to the military base to catch Orson just isn't optimal in any way, whether you're a speedrunner or just a regular player. The alternative for the objective should have been done way better than it was. For the most part, the whole area in the ruins is pretty much unoptimal. I can't say the design of the map is the most original thing either, but hey, it's free and it's good enough. Gameplay wise, the 2 main targets are very well made and the map itself is built perfectly for infiltration, so it definitely deserves a place on this list. Number 7, we have New York. This map is a perfect example that size is not everything, it's how you use it. And they used it brilliantly. A smaller map, but so much freedom of approach. A lot of routes that may seem impossible at first glance turn out to be completely possible once you try them out, like moving your way through the bank staff. It surprises me to this day how many ways there are to get from one point to another. It's such a well executed map, gameplay wise and also very memorable. Just like Ambrose Island, you have a side objective that can be done in 2 ways. But unlike Ambrose Island, both ways can be fast and optimal depending on how you want to play it. You can rob the vault or take down the 3 main people who hold the server disks. Both routes are optimal for both speedrunning as well as general gameplay, and because the target is only one, it makes it easier to create guides and strategies. There are also multiple ways to lure down your target, so you're not forced to make your way to her every single time. Overall, I would say the Bank, which was a Hitman 2 DLC map, was a sweet sample of the awesome maps that would follow in Hitman 3. It has all the makings of a phenomenal level, and for that it earns a place on this list. At the number 6 spot we have Paris. The very first map ever made for the new trilogy also happens to be one of the best. It also happens to be one of the most underrated, at least in my opinion. Paris being first and only map available at the beginning of Hitman 2016 made a lot of people get burned out on it, which is a shame because there is a lot of great things about this map. It's built in a way so it can be scaled easily from the outside to help you move through it. There is a lot of room for creativity on the side of the player. Very easy to get to exits, also plenty of weapons scattered around. Both targets have multiple ways they can be lured into different places, both suit only or otherwise. The map is created in such a way that's very explorable. The way the guards' loops are, you'll always be able to make your way through an area, as long as you're patient or use a simple distraction. It's a very well built level, though in recent history, IO has messed up with it somewhat by changing the lighting, by making it worse, and also adding unneeded enforcers. Still, it's a classic Hitman map that deserves recognition as well as a place on this list. Number 5, Dartmoor. Where do I begin with this one? A pretty well-sized map, very original, filled with different secret passages and able to be scaled from almost anywhere. It's one of the most creative and well-designed maps ever. The detective element is borderline genius. Just like the Bank, we have one target and one side objective, and the side objective can be done in two different ways, either by unlocking the safe or taking the token from Rebecca and the butler. They can both be optimal depending on how you play. In my sniper video I did the token strategy and it was plenty optimal, so they both can work. Also, Alexa can be easily lured to the graveyard, so it gives you a different opportunity to take her down. It's a very clear reference to Beldingford Manor from Hitman Contracts, which in itself was a phenomenal level at the time. Dartmoor perfectly showcased IO's creativity with creating levels that are fresh and different. Not only did they create an amazing level, but they made it completely unique from anything we've ever seen in Hitman, and that has to be appreciated. Dartmoor has fully earned its place as one of the best Hitman maps ever invented. Number 4, Sapienza, the golden child, the one everyone's been waiting for. And of course, what is there to be said about this map? The best mansion area we have ever seen, incredibly well created, giving you so much freedom of approach. Also, outside of it, we get a very big and beautiful map. There is a ton of fun to explore. You can find some very interesting things that will help you lure your targets or deal easily with nagging objectives. And although the two main targets are brilliantly done, the virus not being optional is a big letdown. Even with the EMP device that was added in Mumbai, it still is annoying having to worry about it every single time and makes long-range sniper that much more difficult. Also, the surveillance location really is not ideal. It can be very difficult to reach, even though there's 4 of them in total, the best one probably being in the underground lab. It's one of those maps that really isn't difficult to beat. I would say it's one of the easier maps we have, and because of that, it has a ton of side content, like Patient Zero, Landslide, and the Icon, all done somewhat well. Sapienza, much like Paris, is a perfect showcase that IO always knew how to make great maps when they had the time to do so. And it's also by far one of the most popular and beloved maps of the series, so there's no way I cannot have it on this list. At the number 3 spot we have Berlin. This one took a lot of people by surprise when it came out originally. Having 10 targets all around the map at your first playthrough, you don't even know who they are. Much like an elusive targets, you have to get close to them to be able to recognize them. You only need to take down 5 of them to complete the level, and it can be any 5 you want. This is the map that separates the wheat from the chaff. Though not the most difficult level, it's far from easy. When I picked up Hitman 3 for the first time, I left Berlin for last because I knew that it would take all of my attention to be good at it. And although I was kind of right, I really wish I had played it earlier because it was just so much fun. There are so many different ways to maneuver this map, so many different tactics you can use. This is a map that puts you in control and puts your skills to the test. Depending on where you start from, your loadout will be different, but the map makes sure to give you everything you could possibly want, as the agents themselves carry everything from lockpicks to keycard unlockers, as long as you're able to get a hold of them. The evidence is not too difficult to get rid of, but you may need a firearm to do so. Overall, this map is a big leap in the right direction, giving control to the player and allowing them to use their creativity instead of having to go down the same old path on repeat. A phenomenal map that truly deserves a place at the very top. Number 2, Chongqing. What makes Chongqing great? Well, it's a perfect Hitman map. It is extremely maneuverable. You can play from the roofs, walk through the streets, or go underground and still be able to make things happen. You can beat the whole level from the rooftops alone. You don't like going into the underground facility? No problem! Just shoot up a bunch of drones and wait for Imogen and Royce to make her way to the roof. What's that? You don't like going into the main building? Well, no problem! Just shoot down the satellite dish and wait for Hush to come investigate on the roof. What's that? You don't want to bother getting close to your targets? No problem! Just get to a higher ground, shoot up all of the drones and wait for them to have a little rooftop meeting where you can shoot them both with a single bullet and keep your silent assassin suit only. How many possibilities can one map give you? It's amazing how well this map was done. The underground facility was also done fabulously with the different vents you can move through, though be careful as the maze-like construction can lead you to get lost if you're not sure what you're doing. All parts of this map are explorable and maneuverable. It's a fantastic Hitman map and it's a shame that it doesn't get the number 1 spot, but ultimately the number 1 spot was reserved for a map that I just could not replace from the top. But first, let's move on to the honorable mentions. First off, Mendoza. I know a lot of you are wondering if it would be on this list or not, but there are 2 reasons why, at least in my opinion, it doesn't measure to the top 10. Number 1, Tamara Vidal is a horrid target, the most difficult target in the Hitman trilogy for sure. And once you get into the level, if you haven't taken her down right away, you're either gonna have to wait quite a bit to get a chance or use an overpowered gear. So I'm really not a fan of the way she was created, and also number 2 is the lack of good exits. Outside of Diana, there are no safe shoot only exits. I know in one of the latest patches they added a car as an exit, but that's all the way up the hill on the other end of the map. Overall, 2 gameplay problems are just too big to ignore for me, so I can't have this map in the top 10. In my opinion, it just doesn't deserve it right now. Second one is Hokkaido. The long tight corridors, overwhelmingly restricted by locks and guards, the complete lack of keycards in combination with not being allowed to bring any gear under level 20 makes this map a living nightmare at times. I know it's very unique and a lot of people really love it, but gameplay wise it just doesn't stack up to a top 10 in my opinion. Overall, I would say both Mendoza and Hokkaido are good maps, but gameplay wise I don't think they belong at the top. Anyway, moving on to number 1. Number 1, Miami. Extremely fun to explore, a gigantic map filled with all types of different opportunities to both lure your targets as well as infiltration. Phenomenal soundtrack and an original idea. That being, one of the targets, Sierra, has the car loop at the beginning of the level, but that will change as the race comes to an end. Now, if you're a newbie, then you may just wait around for 15 minutes or so and wait for the race to end, but if you're real slick, you just make your way to the race direction office, grab the USB stick and then make your way to the laptop controlling the race and end it prematurely, allowing you to do a quick fiber wire or poisoning or whatever shenanigans your heart desires to the sexually confused racer. Or you can go after her father in the main building where your opportunities are plenty, from shutting the satellite dish to poisoning the eye drops and messing with the AC unit. It's also perfect for long-range sniper rifle if you wish to do so. It's a perfect map in every way. You can do whatever you want, any way you want it, in a huge, beautiful map with awesome lightings and devious intentions. It's the perfect playground for a seasoned Hitman player, and for that it earns the number 1 place on the list. With that, we've come to the end of the video, but I quickly wanted to say thank you for all the support you've given me through this year. It really does fuel me to do better and better every single time. So do hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe for more content, thank you very much for watching, and have a Merry Christmas.